the stars of Guidance Biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions. Sahabiyat, of Prophet Muhammad, P.B. Comprehensive Historical Reference, book compiled for spiritual upliftment and historical knowledge biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions 1. Introduction. The female companions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, known collectively as the Sahabiyat, played a monumental and foundational role in the establishment, preservation, and dissemination of Islam. They were not mere observers of historical events. Rather, they were active participants, scholars, warriors, nurses, advisors, and spiritual pillars of the early Muslim community. Their dedication to the message of Islam, their resilience in the face of severe persecution, and their profound intellect shaped the jurisprudence and ethical fabric of the Islamic tradition. This book provides a detailed compilation of 50 prominent Sahabiyat, highlighting their lineages, sacrifices, contributions, and enduring legacies to inspire generations to come. Biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions 2. Biographies of the Sahabiyat 1. Khadija bint Khuwaylid. Khadija bint Khuwaylid was the first wife of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, and the very first person to accept Islam. Known as Al-Tahira, the Pure One even before Islam, she was a highly successful and wealthy businesswoman in Mecca. When the Prophet received the first revelation in the cave of Hira, he returned home trembling with fear. Khadija comforted him, reassured him of his noble character, and immediately believed in his prophetic mission. She placed her entire vast fortune at the disposal of the message of Islam, supporting the early Muslim community during the severe economic boycott in the valley of Abu Talib. Her emotional, spiritual, and financial support provided a safe haven for the Prophet during the most turbulent early years of his mission. The Prophet cherished her memory throughout his entire life, stating that she believed in him when others rejected him. She passed away 3 years before the Hijra, marking the year of sorrow too. Aisha bint Abi Bakr. Aisha bint Abi Bakr, the daughter of the first Caliph Abu Bakr, was one of the most influential figures in Islamic history, particularly in the preservation of prophetic traditions. Married to the Prophet after the migration to Medina, she possessed an extraordinarily sharp mind, an exceptional memory, and deep analytical skills. She narrated over 2,210 ahadith, making her one of the most prolific narrators of prophetic traditions. Beyond narration, Aisha was a brilliant jurist, a medical expert of her time, and a master of Arabic poetry and genealogy. Scholars from far and wide, including senior male companions, regularly consulted her on complex legal matters, inheritance laws, and theological questions. Her house became a vibrant center of learning. Her leadership during crucial political events after the Prophet's passing demonstrated her immense public influence and administrative capabilities, solidifying her status as a mother of the believers and a pioneer of Islamic scholarship. 3. Fatima bint Muhammad. Fatima bint Muhammad was the youngest and most beloved daughter of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, and Khadija. She was known as Al-Zahra, the Radiant One, and Al-Badal, the Ascetic. From her childhood in Mecca, she stood fiercely by her father, defending him against physical and verbal assaults from the Qurayshite. She married Ali ibn Abi Talib and lived a life of extreme simplicity and devotion, bearing hardships with immense patience. She was the mother of Hassan and Hussein, the leaders of the Youth of Paradise. Fatima resembled the Prophet closely in her speech, gait, and noble character. Whenever she entered a room, the Prophet would stand up, kiss her hand, and welcome her warmly. The Prophet declared her to be the leader of all women in paradise. Her profound spirituality, resilience, and complete devotion to Allah and His Messenger serve as an eternal model for Muslim women globally. Biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions 3. 4. Salama, Hind bint Abi Salama, born Hind bint Abi, was renowned for her exceptional intelligence, political wisdom, and deep knowledge of Islamic jurisprudence. She was among the early converts to Islam and migrated twice to protect their faith, first to Abyssinia and then to Medina, facing severe family separation and hardship during the process. After her first husband, Abu Salama, died of wounds sustained in the Battle of Uhud, she married Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. Salama possessed acute political acumen, During the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, when the companions hesitated to shave their heads and sacrifice animals out of grief, she advised the Prophet to go out and perform his sacrifices silently. Her astute advice saved the community from disobedience. She narrated numerous ahadith and was frequently consulted on complex legal matters by the early Muslim community, living a long life dedicated to teaching and preserving Islamic tenets. 5. Hafsa bint Umar was the daughter of the second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and a wife of Prophet Muhammad, Piba. Known for her strong personality, literacy, and deep religious devotion, Hafsa was among the few people who could read and write in early Madinah. After her first husband passed away due to injuries from the Battle of Badr, she married the Prophet. Her high level of literacy and profound understanding of the Quran led to an immense historical responsibility. She was entrusted with the custody of the official primary manuscript of the Holy Quran, compiled during the Caliphate of Abu Bakr. This master copy, known as the Mushaf of Hafsa, became the definitive source text from which the third caliph, Uthman, later produced the standardized copies distributed across the expanding Muslim world. Her legacy remains forever intertwined with the flawless preservation of the divine text of Islam. 6. Zainab bint Jahsh was a cousin and wife of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, celebrated for her exceptional generosity, continuous charity, and profound piety. She was a skilled leatherworker and artisan. She would tan hides, sew items, and craft products with her own hands, solely to donate all the earnings to the poor, orphans, and widows of Madinah. Her marriage to the Prophet was explicitly decreed in the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, Tabrik, the pre-Islamic taboo regarding the marriage of a man to the former wife of his adopted son. She was deeply spiritual, spending long hours in prayer, fasting, and contemplation. Aisha praised her extensively, noting that she had never seen a woman more advanced in religious devotion, more charitable, or more dedicated to strengthening family ties than Zainab. She was the first of the Prophet's wives to pass away after his demise, leaving a legacy of selflessness. Biographies of 50 eminent female companions. 4. 7. Sauda bint Zama was the second wife of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, marrying him after the death of Khadijah during a period of immense grief and isolation for the Prophet. She was an early convert who had endured harsh migration to Abyssinia alongside her first husband, who passed away shortly after their return. Sauda was known for her tall, imposing stature, her kind-hearted nature, and her delightful sense of humor, which frequently brought joy to the Prophet's household. She possessed a deeply selfless character. In her later years, realizing her advanced age, she voluntarily gave up her allocated night with the Prophet to Aisha, prioritizing the Prophet's comfort and emotional well-being above her own desires. She lived a quiet, devout life dedicated to the service of the household, and survived the Prophet, remaining highly respected by all companions for her maturity and loyalty. 8. Safiya bint Hayy belonged to the noble Jewish tribe of Banu Nadir and was a descendant of Prophet Aaron Harun. After the Battle of Khaybar, she chose Islam and married Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, thereby bridging deep cultural divides. Despite facing occasional prejudice from others due to her Jewish lineage, the Prophet fiercely defended her dignity, once telling her to reply to any critics, "My father is Aaron, my uncle is Moses, and me husband is Mohammed." Safiya was exceptionally loyal, intelligent, and gentle. During the final illness of the Prophet, she expressed a sincere wish to bear his physical suffering herself. During the turbulent siege of the third Caliph Uthman's house, she courageously risked her safety to deliver food and water to him through a plank connected between their houses. Her life exemplifies patience, resilience, dignity, and true spiritual transformation. 9. Juwayriya bint al-Harith was the daughter of the chief of the Banu Mustalik tribe. She was taken captive following her tribe's defeat in battle. When she approached Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, to request assistance in paying her freedom ransom, the Prophet offered to pay her ransom and marry her, which she joyfully accepted. Upon hearing news of this marriage, the Muslim soldiers immediately released hundreds of captives from Banu Mustalik, declaring that they could not keep the Prophet's new in-laws as prisoners of war. Consequently, her entire tribe embraced Islam. Aisha remarked that she did not know of any woman who brought greater blessings and liberation to her people than Juwairiya. She was deeply devoted to worship, spending her mornings from dawn until noon engaged in continuous remembrance of Allah, dhikr, earning high praise from the Prophet for her spiritual consistency. Biographies of 50 eminent female companions, 5. 10. Maymuna bint al-Harith. Maymuna bint al-Harith was the final woman married to Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, with their marriage taking place during the minor pilgrimage Umrah al-Qada in Mecca. Her original name was Bara, but the Prophet changed it to Maymuna, meaning the blessed, signifying the peaceful era during which they wed. She was known for her exceptional piety, strict adherence to Islamic laws, and dedication to maintaining family ties. Aisha highly commended her character, stating that Maymuna was among the most God-fearing of them all and the most meticulous in honoring family relationships. She narrated several significant ahadith, particularly regarding the Prophet's personal worship habits, purification methods, and domestic life. She passed away at Saraf, the exact geographical location where her marriage to the Prophet had been consummated decades prior, leaving a lasting memory of devotion and dignity. 11. Asma bint Abi Bakr. Asma bint Abi Bakr, the elder sister of Aisha, was famously known as Dihat and Nidakain, the owner of the two belts. She earned this honorable title during the perilous migration, Hira, when she cleverly tore her waist belt into two pieces to secure the food and water containers for the Prophet and her father as they hid in the cave of Thawr. Even when slapped severely by Abu Jahl, she refused to reveal their location. She married Zubair ibn al-Awwam and endured severe poverty early on, carrying heavy date stones on her head over long distances. She was the mother of Abdullah ibn al-Zubair, the first Muslim child born in Madinah after migration. In her extreme old age, completely blind, she demonstrated legendary courage by encouraging her son to stand firmly for truth and justice against tyranny, exemplifying unmatched resilience. 12. Sulaim, al-Rumaysa bint Milhan. Sulaim, also known as al-Rumaysa, was one of the earliest converts in Madinah and a woman of legendary intelligence, independence, and faith. When her first husband rejected Islam and left, she raised her son, Anas ibn Malik, instructing him in the faith and eventually presenting him to the Prophet as a lifelong helper. When Abu Talha proposed marriage to her while still a non-Muslim, she famously declared that her dowry, mahr, would be his acceptance of Islam. He accepted, making it one of the most noble dowries in history. She displayed immense composure when her young child passed away, concealing the tragedy from her husband until he had eaten and rested, trusting completely in Allah's decree. She actively participated in battles, carrying a dagger to protect the Prophet and nursing wounded soldiers with outstanding bravery. Biographies of 50 eminent female companions. 6. 13. Nusayba bint Kab. Umara. Nusayba bint Kab, famously known as Umara, was a legendary female warrior of Islam from the Ansar tribe. She was one of only 2 women who participated in the historic Second Pledge of Aqaba. Nusayba is best remembered for her extraordinary valor during the Battle of Uhud, initially providing water and medical aid. She drew her sword and took up a bow when the Muslim lines broke, forming a physical shield around Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. She sustained 12 severe wounds while repelling enemy attacks, drawing praise from the Prophet, who remarked that wherever he looked, he saw Nusayba fighting to protect him. She continued her military participation in later battles, including the Battle of Yamama, where she lost her hand while fighting bravely against false prophets, symbolizing supreme physical sacrifice and loyalty. 14. Ayman, Baraka bint Thalaba. Ayman, named Baraka, was an Abyssinian woman who initially served as the maid of the Prophet's father, Abdullah. She was the very first person to hold the Prophet in her arms when he was born and cared for him lovingly after his mother, Amina, passed away. The Prophet affectionately called her mother after his biological mother's death and frequently stated, Ayman is my mother after my mother. She was among the earliest converts to Islam, migrated to Madinah on foot across harsh terrains, and participated in the battles of Uhud and Khaybar. She married Zayd ibn Haritha and gave birth to Usama ibn Zayd, the beloved young military commander. Her presence spanned the entire lifetime of the Prophet, remaining a permanent symbol of unconditional maternal love. Unwavering Loyalty, and Early Islamic History 15. Asma bint Umays was a highly distinguished Sahabiya known for her sharp intellect, resilience, and profound dream interpretation skills. She was an early convert who migrated to Abyssinia with her first husband, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, enduring over a decade of exile. Following Ja'far's martyrdom at the Battle of Mu'tah, she later married Abu Bakr, and after his death, she married Ali ibn Abi Talib. This unique life journey placed her at the very heart of early Islamic leadership. Asma was widely respected for her knowledge and wise counsel. Umar ibn al-Khattab frequently sought her advice on matters regarding historical migrations and customs. She narrated numerous ahadith and served as a pillar of emotional and spiritual strength for the household of the Prophet and the early caliphs, demonstrating outstanding adaptability and wisdom. 16. Fatima bint al-Khattab was the courageous sister of the second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and played the pivotal role in his dramatic conversion to Islam. She accepted Islam secretly alongside her husband, Sa'id ibn Zayd, during the earliest Makkan phase. When Umar discovered their conversion, he burst into their house in a rage and physically struck both her and her husband. Despite bleeding from her injuries, Fatima stood her ground with profound courage, declaring defiantly that they had accepted Islam and nothing would make them turn back. Her unshakable conviction, bravery, and emotional strength melted Umar's fierce heart. Shamed by his own violence and moved by her conviction, Umar requested to read the scroll of the Quran, Surah Taha, they had been studying, leading directly to his historic embrace of Islam. Biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions 17. Umara Nusayba's duplicate placeholder removed text updated for. Haram bint Milhan was the sister of Sulaim and an aunt to Anas ibn Malik. The Prophet frequently visited her home in Madinah and rested there. During one visit, the Prophet smiled and revealed a vision of his followers crossing the green seas like kings on thrones to spread Islam. Deeply moved, Haram begged the Prophet to pray that she would be among them. He confirmed she would be. Decades later, during the Caliphate of Uthman, she accompanied her husband, Ubadah ibn al-Samit, on the first historic Muslim naval expedition to Cyprus. Upon reaching the island, she fell from her mount and passed away, being buried there. Her life fulfilled the prophetic prophecy exactly, making her a trailblazer for maritime Islamic expansion and international outreach. 18. Sumiyya bint Qayyat holds the unique, eternal honor of being the very first martyr, Shahida, of Islam. She was an elderly woman, a slave, and the mother of Ammar ibn Yasir. When her family openly accepted Islam in Makkah, they became prime targets for the brutal wrath of the Quraysh elite, particularly Abu Jahl. They were dragged to the burning sands of Makkah, forced to wear heavy iron armor, and subjected to horrific, systematic torture to force them to recant their faith. Despite her physical frailty, Sumiyya exhibited absolute, unyielding spiritual resistance. She consistently refused to insult the Prophet or renounce Allah. Enraged by her stubborn defiance, Abu Jahl brutally executed her with a spear. Her martyrdom established an immortal benchmark of absolute faith, conviction, and ultimate sacrifice for truth. 19. Waraka bint Abdullah was an exceptionally devout Sahabiya celebrated for her profound, extensive memorization and mastery of the Holy Quran. When the Prophet prepared for the Battle of Badr, she earnestly requested to join the army to nurse the wounded, hoping that Allah would grant her martyrdom. The Prophet gently instructed her to remain at home, assuring her that Allah would grant her martyrdom there, leading to her nickname al-Shahida, the martyr, during her lifetime. She possessed such deep knowledge of the Quran that the Prophet explicitly appointed her to act as an imam to lead the members of her large household, including men, in the daily obligatory prayers, establishing an important historical precedent regarding female scholarship, leadership, and Quranic authority. Biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions. 8. 20. Zainab bint Mohammed was the eldest daughter of Prophet Muhammad, Pbuh, and Khadijah. She married her maternal cousin, Abu al-As ibn al-Rabi, before the dawn of Islam. When Islam emerged, Zainab embraced it immediately, while her husband remained a non-Muslim for many years. Despite intense pressure from the Quraysh to divorce her to hurt the Prophet, Abu al-As refused due to his deep love and respect for her. During the Battle of Badr, Abu al-As fought against the Muslims and was captured. To ransom him, Zainab sent her most precious possession, a necklace that had belonged to her late mother, Khadijah. Upon seeing the necklace, the Prophet wept bitterly and requested the companions to release Abu al-As. She migrated to Madinah after experiencing severe physical trauma, and her husband eventually embraced Islam, reuniting with her shortly before her death, 21. Kulthum bint Muhammad. Kulthum bint Mohammed was the third daughter of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, and Khadijah. She underwent severe hardships early in life, including being divorced from her initial betrothal to Abu Lahab's son due to her father's prophetic mission, followed by the grueling economic boycott of Makkah. She migrated to Madinah alongside her sister Fatima. After the passing of her older sister Ruqya, who was married to Uthman ibn Affan, the Prophet married Kulthum to Uthman, earning Uthman the unique title Dhu al-Nurayn, the possessor of two lights. She lived a life of outstanding modesty, supporting her husband's immense philanthropic endeavor, standing as a pillar of grace in the growing Madinan community until her untimely passing in the 9th year after Hijra. 22. Ruqya bint Muhammad. Ruqya bint Mohammed was the second daughter of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, and Khadijah. Renowned for her gentle nature and striking beauty, she married Uthman ibn Affan. Together, they formed a deeply devout couple and were among the historic first group of Muslims to migrate across the sea to Abyssinia to escape persecution, earning the distinction of being the first household to migrate for the sake of Allah since Prophet Lot. They later migrated to Madinah. Ruqya fell severely ill with a virulent fever just as the Muslims prepared for the Battle of Badr. The Prophet ordered Uthman to stay behind in Madinah to nurse her, missing the battle. She passed away just as news of the historic victory at Badr reached the city, leaving a legacy of deep sacrifice and early migration. Biographies of 50 eminent female companions. 9. 23. Hani. Fakhida bint Abi Talib. Hani, named Fakhida, was the daughter of Abu Talib and the first cousin of Prophet Muhammad, Piba. She possessed a strong, noble character and was highly respected within the Hashim clan. Her house in Makkah holds tremendous historical significance, as it was from her residence that the Prophet was awakened and taken forth miraculous night journey and ascension, al-Isra wal-Miraj. She embraced Islam during the conquest of Makkah. On that monumental day, she courageously granted protection, aman, to two of her non-Muslim Mala relatives who were fleeing for their lives. When she informed the Prophet, he famously validated her authority, stating, "We protect whomever you protect, O Hani." Her life demonstrates the high status, autonomy, and legal weight granted to the word of women in Islamic jurisprudence. 24. Al-Shifa bint Abdullah. Al-Shifa bint Abdullah was an exceptionally educated, brilliant Sahabiyya from the Adi clan of the Quraysh. She was one of the very few individuals in the pre-Islamic era who possessed full literacy. Following her conversion, she utilized her extensive skills for public service, teaching reading, writing, and medical skin treatments to numerous Muslim women, including Hafsa bint Umar. The second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, held her intellect, administrative competence, and honesty in such high regard that he appointed her as the controller and market inspector, Mudazib, over the commercial market of Madinah. This groundbreaking administrative role made her one of the earliest Muslim women to hold a prominent, formal public office, managing trade compliance, resolving financial disputes, and ensuring ethical commercial practices. 25. Fatima bint Asad was the noble wife of Abu Talib and the mother of Ali ibn Abi Talib. She acted as a second mother to Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, when he was orphaned as a young boy, raising him with immense warmth, affection, and care, prioritizing him over her biological children. She was among the earliest women to accept Islam and migrated to Madinah. When she passed away, the Prophet wept openly, stating that he had lost his own mother. In an extraordinary gesture of love and honor, the Prophet wrapped her body in his personal shirt as ashroud and physically descended into her grave to lie in it before her burial, praying that Allah expand her final resting place, cementing her legacy as a pillar of maternal love. 26. Hakim bint al-Harith Hakim bint al-Harith was a highly resourceful and courageous woman who displayed immense determination. Originally married to Ikrimah ibn Abi Jahl, she accepted Islam during the conquest of Mecca. Her husband fled to Yemen out of intense fear of retribution. Hakim personally traveled through danger-roused terrains to Yemen, secured a formal pardon for him from the Prophet, and successfully brought him back to Madinah to embrace Islam. Following Ikrimah's martyrdom, she later married Khalid ibn Sa'd. During her wedding feast near Damascus, their camp was suddenly ambushed by a Byzantine army. Demonstrating astonishing battlefield reflex, Hakim pulled up the heavy wooden tent pole of her bridal tent and single-handedly fought off the enemy, killing 7 Byzantine soldiers, immortalizing her name as a warrior. Biographies of 50 eminent female companions. 10. 27. Asma bint Yazid from the Ansar was an outstanding orator, scholar, and a fearless advocate for the women of Madinah, earning her the title Khatibat an-Nisa, the orator of women. She once eloquently approached the Prophet on behalf of women to ask whether women could achieve the same immense spiritual rewards as men through community service, given their household responsibilities. The Prophet deeply admired her eloquence and reassured her that fulfilling domestic duties with excellence equaled all those rewards. Asma was also a prolific narrator of hadith and a brave soldier. She participated in the Battle of Yarmouk, where she demonstrated immense physical strength by utilizing a tent pole to slay 9 enemy soldiers, combining intellectual brilliance with absolute physical courage. 28. Hind bint Utbah was a woman of fierce independence, commanding presence, and complex historical trajectory. Initially an archenemy of Islam who orchestrated the killing of Hamza at Uhud due to personal grief, she underwent a profound transformation during the conquest of Mecca. She approached the Prophet, openly confessed her past misdeeds, embraced Islam with absolute sincerity, and destroyed all idols in her home. Hindra directed her fiery energy toward defending Islam. During the Battle of Yarmouk against the Roman Empire, when some Muslim soldiers retreated, Hind and other women stood firmly at the rear, fiercely reprimanding the fleeing men and driving them back to the front line, transforming a potential defeat into a historic victory. 29. Khawla bint Thalaba is the historic Sahabiyya whose personal grievances led directly to the revelation of the opening verses of Surah al-Mujadila, the woman who pleaded. When her husband subjected her to the pre-Islamic practice of zihar, an unjust psychological divorce where a man declares his wife to be like his mother's back, leaving her stranded, Khawla immediately rushed to Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, to protest, pleading her case with profound passion. Allah heard her voice from above the 7 heavens and revealed verses banning zihar and establishing women's rights. Years later, the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab halted his large retinue and listened to her lengthy advice with deep humility, stating that he could never ignore a woman whose voice was heard by Allah himself. 30. Khawla bint al-Azwar was an exceptionally legendary female military commander and warrior, renowned for her extraordinary skill, speed, and courage during the Muslim conquests. The sister of Commander Durar ibn al-Azwar, she took up arms during the Levant campaigns when her brother was captured by the Byzantine Empire. Dressed in full black armor and a green shawl to conceal her identity, she charged into the Byzantine ranks single-handedly with such ferocity and unparalleled swordsmanship that senior commanders like Khalid ibn al-Walid mistook her for a legendary male warrior. Her tactical brilliance, physical stamina, and immense leadership inspired both male and female soldiers, making her one of the most celebrated and formidable military heroines in classical Islamic history. Biographies of 50 eminent female companions. 11. 31. Kulthum bint Uqba was the very first woman to migrate to Madinah alone on foot after the signing of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Coming from a staunchly pagan aristocratic family in Mecca, her migration posed a major legal challenge, as the treaty stipulated that escapees must be returned. Her brothers pursued her to Madinah to bring her back. However, due to her absolute vulnerability and firm faith, Allah revealed specific verses exempting female migrants from being returned to persecution. She stood firm against her powerful family, demonstrating that a woman's individual faith and spiritual autonomy supersede political treaties and familial pressures, securing a permanent safe haven for all persecuted women in Madinah. 32. Bara bint Abdul Muttalib. Bara bint Abdul Muttalib was the paternal aunt of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, and the mother of Abu Salama. Born into the noble Hashim clan, she possessed immense eloquence, literary talent, and dignity. She supported her nephew's prophetic mission in Mecca during its most difficult phases, utilizing her family's status to buffer against the hostilities. Bara was celebrated for her beautiful classical Arabic poetry, composing verses that praised the moral virtues and noble traits of her lineage and the Prophet. Her firm support and cultural influence within the household of Abdul Muttalib helped lay the foundational familial support system that protected the early growth of the Islamicall in Mecca. 33. Arwa bint Abdul Muttalib. Arwa bint Abdul Muttalib was another paternal aunt of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, and a woman of immense strength and poetic eloquence. She embraced Islam in Mecca and became a fierce defender of the Prophet against his detractors. When her son, Chalaib, attacked Abu Jahl to defend the Prophet, Arwa publicly supported her son's actions, declaring that he was fighting for the absolute truth. She used her powerful command of the Arabic language to compose moving, inspiring poetry defending the Prophet's character and mission. She migrated to Madinah, where she lived a long, devout life, dedicating her voice, social standing, and family influence to the triumph of Islam. 34. Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib. Safiya bint Abdul Muttalib was the paternal aunt of the Prophet and the mother of Zubair ibn al-Awwam. She was a woman of legendary physical courage and mental fortitude. During the Battle of Uhud, when the Muslim lines retreated, she marched forward with a spear, reprimanding soldiers and defending the positions. During the Battle of the Trench, she was stationed in a fortress with women and children when a hostile spy attempted to infiltrate. Realizing no male guards were available, Safiya took a heavy tent pole, slipped out silently, and single-handedly killed the spy, securing the fortress. Her prompt, decisive action saved the vulnerable civilians from slaughter, illustrating extraordinary military resourcefulness. Biographies of 50 eminent female companions. 12. 35. Attika bint Zayd. Attika bint Zayd was a distinguished Sahabiyya celebrated for her exceptional beauty, literary talent, and profound love for the congregational prayers in the mosque. She was married successively to several prominent companions, including Abdullah ibn Abi Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and Zubair ibn al-Awwam. Attika possessed an unyielding determination to pray in the Prophet's mosque. She made it a non-negotiable condition in her marriage, contracts that her husbands could never forbid her from attending congregational prayers. She was a gifted poet who composed deeply moving elegies upon the martyrdoms of Umar and Zubair. Her life stands as an early legal precedent for women's unhindered access to public houses of worship. 36. Fatima bint al-Mundhir. Fatima bint al-Mundhir was a prominent Tabi'iyya and Sahabiyya scholar of the early generation, renowned for her extensive knowledge of Islamic jurisprudence and transmission of hadith. Married to her cousin Hisham ibn Arwa, she was educated directly by her grandmother, Asma bint Abi Bakr. Fatima became one of the primary, most reliable authorities for prophetic traditions in Madinah. Her husband, a senior scholar himself, learned extensively from her and narrated numerous traditions on her authority. Her meticulous precision in transmitting legal rulings, historical narratives, and domestic prophetic traditions placed her at the forefront of early Islamic academic preservation, showing the continuous chain of female scholarship. 37. Mubashir bint al-Bara. Mubashir bint al-Bara was an early Ansari woman from Madinah known for her deep piety, close relationship with the Prophet's household, and her intellectual contributions to hadith literature. She was married Ibn Haritha. Mubashir narrated several significant traditions directly from the Prophet regarding agricultural ethics, spiritual rewards for planting trees, and details about the life of the soul. She was highly respected within the Madinah community for her wise counsel, spiritual maturity, and continuous support of charitable causes. Her narrations are recorded in major compilations, highlighting her role in preserving the ethical teachings of Islam. 38. Al-Darda, Kyra bint Abi Hadred, al-Darda the Elder, named Kyra, was the wife of the famous companion Abu al-Darda. She was a woman of immense spiritual devotion, asceticism, and deep philosophical insight. Along with her husband, she chose a life of extreme simplicity, rejecting worldly luxuries to focus entirely on worship, contemplation, and Quranic study. She memorized the entire Quran and was widely recognized for her deep understanding of the inner spiritual dimensions of faith. Her home was a sanctuary for seekers of knowledge, and she played a vital role in educating the women of Medina and later Damascus, leaving an enduring legacy of Islamic mysticism and intellectual depth. Biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions. 13. 39. Ruman bint Amir. Ruman bint Amir was the noble wife of Abu Bakr and the mother of Aisha and Abdurrahman. She was among the earliest converts in Mecca, enduring extreme isolation and persecution alongside her family. During the traumatic incident of the slander Ifk, directed against her daughter Aisha, Ruman stood as an anchor of emotional support, patience, and absolute faith, comforting her daughter until divine vindication was revealed. The Prophet held her in immensely high esteem. When she passed away in Medina, the Prophet personally descended into her grave to seek forgiveness for her, declaring that anyone who wished to see a beautiful woman from the maidens of paradise should look at Ruman. 40. Lubaba bint al-Harith, al-Fadl. Lubaba bint al-Harith, widely known as al-Fadl, was the wife of the Prophet's uncle Abbas and holds the distinguished honor of being the second woman in the world to accept Islam, converting immediately after Khadijah. She was a close friend of Khadijah and a woman of immense courage. While living in Mecca, she fiercely defended her faith. When Abu Lahab was brutally celebrating the Muslim losses at Badr, al-Fadl took a heavy wooden post and struck him severely, inflicting a wound from which he never recovered. She was highly intelligent, a reliable narrator of hadith, and the mother of the legendary Quranic scholar Abdullah ibn Abbas, whom she raised with deep devotion. 41. Al-Khansa, Tumadir bint Amr. Al-Khansa, named Tumadir bint Amr, was the most celebrated and unparalleled female poet in classical Arabic history. She embraced Islam alongside her tribe and met the Prophet, who deeply admired her poetic genius, frequently asking her to recite verses. Prior to Islam, she was famous for her heart-wrenching elegies for her deceased brothers. However, Islam completely transformed her perspective on life and death. During the monumental Battle of Qadisiyah against the Persian Empire, she explicitly commanded her 4 sons to fight with absolute bravery for Allah. When all 4 of her sons achieved martyrdom in the battle, instead of lamenting, she proudly declared, "Praise be to Allah who has honored me with their martyrdom," showcasing supreme faith. 42. Zainab bint Abi Salama. Zainab bint Abi Salama was the stepdaughter of Prophet Muhammad, pbuh, raised within his personal household after her mother Salama married him. She grew up under the direct guidance of the Prophet, developing into one of the most brilliant, foremost female jurists, fuqaha, of her generation in Medina. She possessed an extensive, unparalleled knowledge of Islamic law, particularly regarding marital laws, women's rights, and ritual practices. Senior companions and scholars would regularly travel to consult her on delicate legal dilemmas. Her profound academic contributions and structured legal reasoning helped shape the foundational legal schools of Medina, serving as a bright testament to the intellectual growth of women raised in the Prophet's household. Biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions. 14. 43. Kulthum bint Abi Bakr. Kulthum bint Abi Bakr was the daughter of the first caliph, Abu Bakr, born shortly after his demise. She was raised lovingly under the care of her older sister, Aisha. She grew up to be a highly intelligent, eloquent, and dignified scholar. She married Talha ibn Ubaydullah, one of the 10 promised paradise, and bore him children. Kulthum was deeply respected for her exceptional character, profound knowledge of prophetic traditions, and her active involvement in the social and charitable welfare of the Medinan community. She transmitted several ahadith through her sister Aisha, contributing to the academic continuity of early Islamic jurisprudence. 44. Layla bint al-Minhal, Tamim. Layla bint al-Minhal, famously known as Tamim, was a Sahabiya noted for her extraordinary eloquence, striking elegance, and her resilience through intense political upheavals. Originally married to Malik ibn Nuwayra, her life became central to complex legal and political discussions during the Ridda Wars. She was a woman of deep faith who maintained her devotion to Islamic practices during times of heavy tribal discord. She was widely respected by the companions for her dignity, intelligence, and maturity, and she later married the famous commander Khalid ibn al-Walid. Her life story remains a significant subject in classical Islamic history regarding legal procedures and social dynamics during the early Caliphate 45. Mabed, Attika bint Khalid. Mabed, named Attika bint Khalid, was a noble Bedouin woman living in a tent in the desert between Mecca and Madinah. She holds a unique place in history due to her encounter with Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, during his perilous migration. When the Prophet's thirsty party stopped at her tent, she had no food or milk except an emaciated, dry goat. The Prophet stroked the goat's udder and blessed it, causing milk to flow abundantly, filling multiple vessels for her and the party. After the Prophet left, Mabed provided a stunning, immortalized verbal description of the Prophet's physical appearance and noble demeanor to her husband, which remains one of the most detailed and celebrated classical descriptions of the Prophet in Islamic literature. 46. Suraka bint Malik, updated focus. Safiya bint Abu Ubaid. Safiya bint Abu Ubaid was a prominent Sahabiya and the wife of Abdullah ibn Umar. She was a woman of outstanding intellect, piety, and administrative wisdom, raised in a family of leaders. Safiya was highly educated in Islamic jurisprudence and transmitted numerous ahadith directly from Aisha and Hafsa. She possessed a strong social presence in Madinah, acting as a prominent teacher and counselor for women. Her marriage to Abdullah ibn Umar created an academic partnership, and she was widely praised for her deep religious devotion, continual charity, and meticulous preservation of prophetic ethics, making her an influential figure in the transmission of Madinan traditions. Biographies of 50 eminent female companions. 15. 47. Majin was a deeply pious, humble African woman living in Madinah who suffered from physical frailties but possessed an extraordinary spiritual dedication. She voluntarily took up the responsibility of keeping the Prophet's mosque clean, sweeping its floors and clearing away litter every single day out of pure love for Allah. When she passed away at night, the companions buried her quietly, not wanting to disturb the resting Prophet. Upon realizing her absence, the Prophet inquired about her, expressing deep sorrow that he wasn't informed. He immediately walked to her grave alongside his companions and performed a special funeral prayer explicitly for her, declaring that her selfless service to the house of Allah had earned her a lofty status in Paradise. 48. Hind bint Amr ibn Haram. Hind bint Amr ibn Haram was an early Ansari woman of extraordinary resilience and absolute faith. During the catastrophic Battle of Uhud, she suffered the devastating loss of her husband, Amr ibn al-Jama, her brother, and her son, who all achieved martyrdom. As she was leading a camel bearing their bodies back to Madinah, she encountered Aisha and other women. Instead of breaking down in despair, her very first question was regarding the physical safety of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Upon being assured that the Prophet was alive and safe, she famously proclaimed, "Every calamity, as long as you are safe, is minor." Her profound words remain a definitive historical symbol of unconditional love and ultimate devotion to the Messenger of Allah. 49. Asim bint Asim, Layla bint Asim. Layla bint Asim, known as Asim, was the granddaughter of Umar ibn al-Khattab and the mother of the legendary, righteous Caliph Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Her lineage stems from a famous event during Umar's caliphate. Her mother was the honest milkmaid who refused to mix water with milk despite her mother's urging, nodding Thatvan if Caliph Umar could not see them. Allah was watching. Impressed by her absolute honesty, Umar married Hisn Asim to her, and Layla was born from this union. Layla inherited this profound integrity and piety, raising her son Umar ibn Abdul Aziz with deep ethical foundations that eventually allowed him to revive absolute justice throughout the entire Islamic empire. 50. Kulthum bint Ali. Kulthum bint Ali was the granddaughter of Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, born to Fatima and Ali ibn Abi Talib. She was a woman of noble lineage, outstanding eloquence, and immense political maturity. She married the second caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, bridging the households of the Prophet and the Caliphate. Kulthum washily active in social welfare. During her marriage, she personally went to assist a poor Bedouin woman undergoing labor in the desert, acting as a midwife while Umar prepared food for the family. Following Umar's martyrdom, she lived a dignified life of worship and scholarship, representing the peak of prophetic family values, profound humility, and selfless service to the vulnerable. Biographies of 50 Eminent Female Companions, 16.